Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Carter. I'm Head of Digital Customer Experience at Norfolk County Council, as Simon has said, and together with colleagues that I'll introduce in a bit, I'm here today to share with you how we've re-engineered our customer inquiry management process using the GOSS platform. So first of all, you've had a sneak preview, but a little bit about us and our place. Lots of information on here, but I guess what I draw your attention to as being most pertinent to for this morning is that we are the upper tier of a two-tier authority, at least until April 2028. And so that means, as you'll know, because I guess we're all local authority people in the room, or mostly, we don't do bins or revs and bends or housing or parking. Our district colleagues sort that stuff out. But what we do is social care, education, highways, libraries, fire and rescue, to name but a few. And we have a workforce of around 7,500 people supporting those things for our 900,000 residents, amongst other things. Also important for today to point out is that we have a centralised access model. So we have a customer service centre, or contact centre for short, which handles around 25,000 contacts every month from customers over phone and email. So just in terms of our GOSS journey, we joined this community in April 2023, having gone to market for a new customer experience platform in September 2022, and following work to stand up our infrastructure and develop processes and design migrations, we launched our first kind of content and services on the platform in January 2024. So we are quite close now to the end of a gargantuan and quite aggressive effort to migrate and decommission all of our legacy technologies, because we've successfully migrated everything over to the GOSS platform. We're due to finish that on time at the end of this month, which is a real testament to a lot of work here from the team and also our colleagues at GOSS. So very proud and excited about that. I'll just summarise our usage of the platform before colleagues get into specifics about the customer inquiry management stuff, to give you a broad idea really of what we've been up to. So we've got multiple large websites on the platform, over 40 online forms, up to around 15 case management processes, with the things in the coming soon box there on the right hand side on track for delivery before the end of March. We're also using the bookings functionality to support recycling centre bookings. I think we've had about 170,000 bookings through that service since we launched it in November. So there's an awful lot of activity running through that. That's high volume. So the platform really is corporately significant for us now, really, in terms of the critical mass of stuff that we've got on it. But the focus of our session this morning is the enquiries solution, which you can see listed there under the case management stuff that we're running. It's not technically 100% accurate, because that solution it does have a form involved in it as well, but hey ho. We use that process to manage those 25,000 contacts that I mentioned come through our customer service centre, which is what we refer to as our front door in terms of the organisation. So moving into then that inquiry solution specifically, we had quite a clear idea where we wanted to get to in terms of that process. So we wanted one consistent kind of best practice approach to how we handled customer inquiries across our organisation, and for that to be completely agnostic in terms of what the inquiry was about, whereas what we actually had when we started this was lots of variation and different processes for managing customer inquiries through the front door and onward. We wanted there to be one single record or source of truth for every inquiry that we handle, so that everyone involved in sorting that inquiry for a customer, wherever they sat in the organisation or whatever step they were involved, could access and share that same record. But what we had was inquiries that were being logged by the contact centre in our old CRM, which were then notified or shared with back office teams via email in general, not always, but in general, which meant we had kind of different records of an inquiry that were disconnected, not joined up, etc. That wasn't really optimal in terms of our own efficiency, but also a customer's experience. And we wanted to remove some of the admin burden that had built up over the years for our contact centre from our legacy processes. We could see double keying and duplication and stuff there, and we wanted to take the opportunity to remove that. And we want it to be more customer-led, really, in terms of our approach. It's a bit more of a difficult one to explain, but we'll come on to that in a bit. Ultimately, all of those things, those enablers, those ambitions, were about improving the timeliness and quality of the service that we deliver to customers. So this looks a bit scientific, but don't really need to worry too much about the full detail of this. But just to say that I guess the first step towards us changing this process was business analysis and design. So we invested heavily in understanding what we were dealing with before we embarked on any kind of technical build, to support that solution. And we started with some desktop analysis. So trying to understand, what does our data tell us? What sort of contacts are we receiving? How effectively do we handle those? This slide shows what we call a Sankey diagram. You may or may not be familiar with one of these, but we created a lot of these. So this is just an example. It's telling us that over the period that we looked at our school admissions inquiries, this is a historical look back over what we'd handled. We'd had 8,400 of them through the contact centre. We'd resolved nearly 6,000 of them. Hey, that's actually great. But we'd handed off around 2,500 of them. But what we can see, the red box at the bottom there, those handed off ones, they're the ones that have gone a bit into the ether. I talked about the handoff via email. We don't really understand the journey on those. We've got limited insight in terms of what's happened, how quickly they were resolved, and indeed, as you can see, what they were about. Some very, very generic things there. We know that we had nearly 2,000 inquiries, 158 chasing items, but we don't specifically really understand the categorization of those. So that desktop analysis told us how big a problem we had, or some issues that we had, but didn't really give us much insight into what customers were contacting us about, because we didn't really record things in that customer-led way that I was talking about. So the next phase was to move on to workshopping. So we workshopped with our customer service centre colleagues, and you're going to meet Daniel in a bit, who's going to do a demo for you of this solution. He's here in the blue shirt, just in case anyone's interested. But we really got underneath what are customers contact us about, what are their core needs, what standard types of inquiry and process are we running around this place. And the outcome of all that business analysis and design work was something that we call the customer needs architecture. And that is something that defines what our standard inquiry types are now that we recognise that flow through our organisation from front to back. And that's been a really kind of valuable business asset, and it's baked into the config and the processes that you're going to see demoed this morning. In the interest of conveying that a little bit better, because Simon thought I might need to, I've tried to visualise that. I'm hoping that this is going to work, that the animation works on this slide. So you should now be seeing a slide which is mostly white, but has got some level 1 stuff at the top. Is that your experience? Yeah, good. Okay, then we're off to a good start. So I'm just going to walk you through this visual. So this is our customer needs architecture. So at the top level, and there's nothing too surprising here. It's telling you what we recognise as our kind of 21 core high-level customer needs. And there are hundreds of journeys through this architecture, but they're all defined. So if we were to pick, for example, the schools and education journey through this, we see that underneath schools and education, we recognise a range of different types of inquiry at level 2. And if we were to follow the admissions path through our customer needs architecture, we would then be seeing that at level 3 under admissions, we recognise a range of different types of thing that a school admissions inquiry can be about. So it's about starting or moving school, about an appeal of a placement, request to defer, or something to do with problems accessing my parent portal account. And if we were to follow the starting or moving school journey through, we then see at level 4 a starting or moving school inquiry can be of 4 different flavours. And if we pick the secondary one, then that's the bottom of the architecture. So our architecture never has more than 4 levels. Sometimes it only has 2 or 3, but as a maximum it has 4, and also includes information about where we hand off, what the flow is of that inquiry through the organisation. So our admissions team is where our secondary inquiries go around starting or moving school, if that makes sense. Just in terms of benefits, I'm nearly done. Just to summarise before I hand over to other colleagues, is just to say there's a range of benefits associated with what we've done, not just for us on many levels at the council, but also for our customers. So our customers getting a more joined up experience, because if they're talking to the customer service and the customer service can see the notes and the activities that are happening in back office. We don't have to keep handing customers backwards and forwards or having lots of different versions of the truth, and also a more timely and responsive experience. So you guys will be familiar with some some of the standard out-of-the-box functionality that the GOSS case management solution offers, like the contact function, that sort of thing. It's giving us a very instantaneous means of collecting missing information and communicating two-way with our customer. In terms of us as a council, we've got some really, really valuable end-to-end service measures now, because we've got one record that says it came in here, all of these things then happened and it finished here, rather than it came in here and it was logged and then some emails went flying off. We can actually measure that full customer experience, and that's a really powerful thing in terms of us becoming a more customer-focused organisation. Customer data is much better managed in a core line of business application, like our new customer service hub, which is what we've built to manage this process, than in emails. So that's great. And because we just have this one consistent process or build for all of our inquiries, we're quite nimble now in terms of developing, and we don't have lots and lots of different versions of a process to manage in my sort of support team that supports these processes. Contact center, we are enjoying no more, not having to double key things anymore, streamlined logging processes, consistent way of doing things, regardless of what they're dealing with, and also some improved data and insight about the inquiries that they're handling. So if we think back to that thank you diagram with the School of Admissions inquiries that said we had nearly 2,000 inquiries, we now know how many we get about admissions or governor services or this or that. You see how that MI starts to become really valuable. And that, I think, is just about all I have to say by way of introduction and giving you a bit of an overview of our journey on the platform. I'm going to be handing over next to a colleague, Daniel, who's actually in our customer service centre, and he's going to show you the experience of the customer service centre logging an inquiry sort of through our logging form, and some of the ways that behaves and the things that can and can't do. And then Simon, who actually works in my team in digital services, Simon Atkins, is going to show you sort of the back end config of how this thing works. We're not planning to show you the a back office team picking up a case and handling it, because that's just fairly core standard GOSS functionality we think you're probably all very familiar with, but we'll do a demo and see how it goes. So without further ado, I can see he's having a cough and clearing his throat. I'll hand over to Daniel and stop sharing. Thank you all.
Lovely. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I was just coughing away. Hello, I'm Daniel. I am a training and quality assurance officer for our customer contact center. I warn you now, I'm a bit full of cold, so I'll be dripping away or sneezing, so I do apologize if you hear that on the call. So what I'm going to show you is how we log any inquiry on the inquiry form, or what our staff do in the customer service center. So starting on the home page, we'll go to the assist and we'll do the record an inquiry. So as Michelle has said, this is really helped us. It's really streamlined our processes, and it's made our lives easier. It's made logging a lot quicker as well. Before we had to log on multiple different systems. Now we can just do it on one, which is brilliant. So a lot of the questions are very specific for us in our role. So the very first one, as we're a contact center, we've got multiple channels that people can come in on. So face-to-face, email, letter, etc. Majority is phone, so you can click phone. We've got an optional customer name. So in case somebody is calling in anonymous, we can leave this blank, but we're going to put John Smith there. And then we collect postcodes in the customer service center. So I'm just going to put postcode in here. Now, this is where the bulk of the customer's inquiry will go. If we're resolving it, and I'll go through what resolved means later on and what that means to us. But if we resolve it, we can just get away with a short description. If we're handing it off to a back office, we'll put all the relevant information in there. So I'm just going to say John is chasing his son's in-year transfer. Staff would put a lot more lovely detail in there rather than that. And now this is what Michelle was touching upon, the customer need architecture. So minimum it will be 2 levels and maximum it will be 4. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to start by doing an admissions query, which will be 4 levels. So the first level, you've got all those high level options. You can either scroll down or you can type it in there. And then we go level 2, so we're going to do emissions. Level 3 is apply moving schools, and then this is going to be an in-year transfer. So you've got those 4 levels. And what's brilliant about this form is it's fluid. So depending on the options that I select, it will change the form. So the levels will change. And as you'll see on the next page, it will actually change the information that we get and the information that we have to input. So at the top, because I've selected emissions, we've got an information and guidance section. So if a customer was calling up wanting to do an in-year transfer application and the customer service agent started logging the call, it will actually come up here with the application, and we can take that web address and we can send that to the customer. So it's all tied up. And if we were to do a blue badge, the page to the blue badge application form will be on there. It's pulled through the customer's name, and then I'm going to put in the rest of the details. Email address is optional, so our staff are encouraged to take email addresses on all calls to kind of send a confirmation of the call, and we can put in any links, anything that the customer may need in there, and that will get sent to them. I'm going to put the address in like so, and then it will pull through. I'm just putting County Hall's address in there. If it's not, we can select that option and manually put it in. Because it's an emissions query, the missions back office team, they require a certain amount of information. So they want to know the school and how many children. So this form, when we select emissions or school transport, it will ask us this information. Like if we did blue badge, it will ask for a reference number. So it's very specific depending on the service that you select. So I'm going to say 1, and then I'm going to say Acle School, and I'm going to say Chris Smith, and I've got to make up a date of birth. There we go. Now, we collect failure demand here. So we've got a at Norfolk County Council. So if it is a failure demand, we can select yes, or if we select no, we can just move on. I'm going to select yes, and I'm going to select did not get back to the customer, previous request not adequately resolved. And I can say yes, not heard back from team, and then select no there. And then we have questions about compliments and complaints. I'm just going to say no for these. And then we select the outcome. So I mentioned resolved earlier. We have 4 outcomes that we can select for our inquiry. Resolved is if we've completed it at first point of contact. Referred means that we have assigned it to a back office team, but on a separate system that has its own CRM. But we've only got 2 systems now that have their own inbuilt CRMs into it. CSC work tray, it doesn't apply to the majority of contacts. That's only for emails and live chats, and that just sends it back into the CSC tray for them to pick up and deal with. And then finally, assigned means it gets sent off to the work tray for the back office to pick up and have a look at. So I'm going to select next, and then we get to, if there's any details that are incorrect or we've missed, we can go back to that page, which is great because I believe before we had to go back to the very beginning, which wasn't good at all. So this is great. We can just go here and go back to the page, and then at the bottom we can see that it's assigned and the case is going to be assigned to this emissions work tray. Click submit, and that will now have gone. And then the customer will get confirmation if they provided an email address of their 16-digit reference number. So that's an emissions query. I'm now going to show you a highways one. So before this came in, highways was a bit of a longer process for our staff to do. It's a bit clunky. This being on here, it's actually married the two processes together, the contact logging process and the highways process, and our staff are finding it a lot easier to log it this way because it's very similar to the majority of their other calls. So we're going to log an inquiry, do the same again. It'll be John Smith again, because that's the extent of my imagination on here. We're going to say has received a letter about his overgrown tree. And you think I'd learn how to spell received, but sure enough, it's got good spell check there. So you've got that there, and then we're going to select the highways option. Level 2, we're going to say hedges and trees, and then we're going to say hedges or trees letter. And we've got a question about a letter. Now, our highways are split into two. We've got defects where something needs to be done, like fill in a pothole, and we've got inquiries where it's a question. So I received a letter. So I'm going to be doing an inquiry. So they're asking a question about it. And what we can see on the next page, as we've done a highways, it's changed the information and guidance here. So we've got information about hedges and trees, and we've got links there. Question about parish councillors, because parish councillors tend to call about highways queries. So we're going to say no. Our staff will fill in all these optional boxes as much as possible. I'm just going to leave those blank and then get to the address section here. And we're going to say that this person lives at County Hall and select next. Now, highways depends on a location. So what this will do is it will take you to a map for us to pin the location of the inquiry. So if it's at the address, it will pull the address through from the last page and pin it on the map. If not, they can put in an address here and they can search it, and that will take you to another location. You scroll down and you can see we've got a green line, and there is a legend here that will tell you what the different roads mean, whether it's maintained or not maintained. So I'm going to pin it on the map. And by doing this, it's actually going to tell the system where this location needs to go. So we have 11 different depots or area maintenance teams that can pick up a highways inquiry. So by pinning it on the map, it will actually know whereabouts in Norfolk or what depot it needs to send it to. So I'm going to just say outside property number 10. And that way the person will pick it up and they'll know exactly where they need to go. So if I select continue, you should see, or you will see at the bottom, we're just going to say no to these. And then we're going to select the outcome as assigned here, same as before. So it's a lot similar to the logging and emissions one, which is a lot more straightforward for our staff. And, ooh, there we go. It's because I didn't put the optional ones. It's telling me that I haven't put enough information. So I've got to go back and then change it and put those information in. I can see Holly there smiling, going, oh, I should have put that information in. So I'll just do that there. We'll put that email in like that. There we go. And then we'll just go through to those pages and then we're back to here. And then as you can see at the bottom, it's going to assign this case to the area maintenance south, and that is because of where I pinned it on the map. So I'm going to select next or submit, and that has gone through. If we were to do a defect, When we log that on there, it integrates with the highway system, which is Mayrise. So it will generate a Mayrise number, and then the street inspectors or whoever's dealing with the highways inquiry, that will go onto their system. And I believe, not 100% sure, I believe that's all on a tablet, and they'll be able to go out and fill in that pothole or do what they need to do for their highways inquiry.